Hello and welcome to Meet Rebel Games. This is the first video in a series called Infinity Tactics, where I look at my favourite units in Infinity the game and some fun tricks you can do with them to give you a bit of an edge. The series is aimed more at new players, but I hope some seasoned pros can enjoy them as well. For anyone who's played against me in Infinity, this first unit won't surprise you. It's the Moran Maasai Hunter. Hands down one of my favourite units in the entire game. It just gave me such a boost when I started using it. It helped to protect me from so many Alpha Strike options, things like AD troops, things like ninjas, Fidays. Also gave me an option of getting right up to the halfway line early doors and grabbing objectives. Really, really useful unit. So worth the points. It wasn't long before I was starting every army list with 2 Moran Maasai Hunters. And to be honest, if I'm running Corregidor or if I'm running Nomads, I'm really going to struggle to not just put 2 on the list, because they always get their points back. They're always worth it. They always cause problems for the enemy. And even if you're not killing enemy troopers in Infinity, if you're slowing your enemy down or making your enemy hold back for longer than they want to, that is in itself an achievement. So the Moran Maasai Hunter really deserves a closer look for those of you that aren't running them yet. You can get 2 versions of the Moran Maasai Hunter, 2 loadouts. You've got a combi rifle loadout. These are old sculpts, by the way. You get the combi rifle loadout, who's quite good for suppression, BS12 and mimetism. So, you get him on the halfway line, put him in suppression. He's a roadblock. And then you've got the boarding shotgun option. So if you've got a mission where specialists count, and if your opponent kills more specialists than your opponent gets victory points, you take the boarding shotgun Moran instead of the forward observer Moran. Again, mimetism, BS12 and a boarding shotgun on the halfway line is pretty fierce. But the key thing about the Moran Maasai Hunter, well, there are 2 things really. The first is they've got a repeater on them, so you can hack through them. Anything within 8 inches of your Moran is fair game for your hackers. But they also carry with them crazy koalas, which are these little chaps here. So these are solid gold, especially for Nomads, who tend to be, especially the way I play them, a bit of a glass cannon. Lots of tricks, lots of hard hitters, but nothing that's really that tough. The great thing about these little guys is they can be anywhere within 8 inches of the Moran Maasai Hunter controller, and each Moran will have 2 of them. They can't deploy further forward than the Moran is able to, so they can't deploy further than the halfway line, for example, if you're playing a mission that doesn't have an exclusion zone. What I used to do prior to a lot of the new releases, a lot of the new units that have been coming out, was I'd have them right on the halfway line and have the crazy koalas as close to the enemy as I could get them. But then when killer hackers were introduced, especially TO camo killer hackers, you didn't want your Moran Maasai Hunter to be right up to the halfway line, because that would mean that any time you activated one of your hackers in your list, and if you're running vanilla Nomads, you're probably going to be using an interventor for white noise and various things like that, your opponent would suddenly say ARO with the killer hacker within 8 inches of your Moran Maasai Hunter with the repeater. So you'd end up taking a wound or something like that, really frustrating, and you'd end up being on the back foot. You'd end up hesitating and being slowed down by the fact that you had a Moran Maasai Hunter in your army. So what I tend to do now with them is I hold them back. I hold them back from the front line, so maybe like 8 or 9 inches away from that halfway line, so you know that you're outside the zone of control of any TO camo killer hackers, unless your opponent's tried to infiltrate them in. And that way, you're kind of safe. But it also means you can still spread your koalas out. So you can still have your koala on that halfway line, and then one of your koalas can be in your DZ. Why would you want one of your koalas in the DZ? AD troops. These guys like the Hellcat, who come flying in, land in your half the table, and start shooting your dudes in the back. That's really not fun. Also things like ninjas, Shinobu Kitsune for example, or a Fiday, someone like Aljabel, who can impersonate one of your troopers and appear in your deployment zone and just carve through you with impunity. Now if you've got a Moran Maasai Hunter in your list, and if you've got a koala in your DZ somewhere near your fight team, for example, or near your tag, sure, your opponent can pop a ninja and go in for the kill, but as soon as that ninja does anything, that koala is going to go off and the ninja has to dodge or take the koala to the face. Now, as anyone who's played Infinity will tell you, if you're making a dodge roll, you're probably going to fail it. If you're making that dodge roll with your 30 point 35 point, 37 point, 40 point killing machine, you're probably going to fail it. And you're probably going to fail the armor roll too, because that's life. No player wants to kind of risk that. So you'll find that a player who's sunk, 40 points on Cuervo Goldstein, really won't want to expose that model to the chance of being hit in the face with shock. So they'll just keep away from your koalas. And what players will tend to do is they'll try and kill the Moran Maasai Hunters. Once the controller's dead, of course, the koalas are inert, unless you've previously set them. And that in itself is going to soak up orders. The fact that they're going to have to try and hunt your Moran Maasai Hunters down in order to deny you that area denial capability. So again, you're making the opponent waste orders. The Moran Maasai Hunters let you do a lot of janky stuff, a lot of dirty stuff. You're not just denying your opponent the chance to alpha strike you in so many ways. You're also detonating mines with them. Say there's a mine that's... Say there's an objective right here and I really want to get to it, but I think there's a mine next to it because there's a cow marker that hasn't reacted to me in any way. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to stay around the corner. I'm going to activate my Moran Maasai Hunter. First shot seal's going to be move and the koala's going to move 6 inches. Bang, the mine goes off. Great. Hasn't cost me anything really, and I've got rid of a mine. Other things you can do as well, if you don't want your opponent to come through a doorway, you know what? You just put the crazy koala in the doorway. And then your opponent's got to either set it off or something like that. And of course, your opponent's going to come through the doorway anyway. They're going to set the koala off. But it just means, again, you're bogging them down. You're making them think about stuff. You can put your crazy koala in the building somewhere. Again, you're making your opponent think about stuff. If you're putting it in a sealed room, for example, a room where there's a door, but the door's closed, then your opponent's going to be thinking, well, if I go in that room, I'm going to set that koala off. Just little things like that just make your opponent slow down for a moment and hesitate and maybe make a poor decision. If you can put your opponent under a little bit of pressure like that with some of the toys that you've got in your arsenal, then you're that one step closer to victory. Other things you can do, other naughty things you can do with Moran Maasai Hunters, you can take down really big targets with these guys. Like say, for example, you're dealing with a HI, a really scary HI like this. Well, it could be a Taskmaster, it could be anything, couldn't it? It's Maximus with a big gun. Let's just say it's a Taskmaster, and the Taskmaster's here, and he's in cover, and he's in suppressive fire, and he's just making your life a living hell. So your Moran Maasai Hunter comes around maybe here, prone, and you hack through him. This poor guy is in your zone of control. You're going to assault hack through the repeater of the Moran to attack Maximus. Now, Maximus is probably going to want to try and resist that hacking attempt. So he's going to drop suppression in order to ARO with reset. So now he's no longer in suppression. Even if you haven't managed to win the face-to-face, even if you haven't managed to lock him down, you've still knocked him out of suppression. But let's go one further than that. Let's say, for example, you really want to kill him and you've got nothing else left nearby that can do the job. Okay, we disable him, we freeze him, we isolate him, not isolate him, but we freeze him with a hacking attempt. And then we start getting closer. He resets, we hack through again and lock him down, and then we move closer again, and then we shoot him in the back with a boarding shotgun with AP. Now, even if he manages to reset against that, that's great, because you know what? We're just going to hack him again. Now, it sounds like it's order intensive, and it is order intensive, because you're spending in order to hack, and then you're spending in order to move and shoot with the Moran, rinse and repeat. But against most targets, it's an effective way of doing things. In 5 or 6 orders, you've killed something really, really nasty. I've done this against things like Joan. I've done it against things like Azrael's. It works when you've got nothing else in your arsenal that can do the job. And it just means that Morans let you deal with things that you really have no business being able to deal with using a tiny dude with a combi rifle or a tiny dude with a boarding shotgun. Again, it's just a nice little trick. So that's the Moran Maasai Hunter. They're dirt cheap. As I say, if I'm running Corregidor, if I'm running vanilla Nomads, first 2 things that go on my army list are Moran Maasai Hunters. They are solid gold. They make your enemy AD think twice. They make your enemy ninjas think twice. They make Fidays think twice. And these are the nasty things that, if they get in the right place in your back line, they can just carve through you with impunity. And if you can just hold those things off for long enough to take the fight to your enemy, then you're on your way to victory, really. So there's my little love song to the Moran Maasai Hunter. I adore them. I think they're wonderful. you should own at least 2. All right, thank you.